Hi, welcome. Is there a hedgehog in your logo?
Because it's springtime
Don't be alarmed now.
for the logo. If you don't know Stairway to Heaven, I suggest listening to it before the song starts.
I don't think you can find an official version on YouTube. I couldn't,
No.
personally.
No, you can't.
Although the unofficial live version has like 140 million views. Can you imagine that bullshit?
140 million.
We have 550 videos on the channel over 5 years, and we have 40,000 total views across all of them.
That's true, but we're also no Led Zeppelin. So in a minute,
Excuse me.
I beg to differ. So a handout will appear on your screen that should break down what lines I have numbered, just to make it easier for me to refer to things during this podcast.
He's talking to you, the audience, not me.
But no,
I have no screen.
I'm talking to both of you. You got it
I
in
have
front of
no
you.
screen.
You got it in front of you,
The
dude.
handout did not appear in a screen. It is a physical device.
Okay. Use your device.
I am hopped up. I am hopped up on the caffeine, all right? I think
right.
this is the most energy I've ever had in a podcast before.
Well, then that's wonderful, because we're going to need energy for this podcast.
Is everyone enjoying this? This is feeling good?
Normally when we do these, I come to you with answers. So I
It's
usually
something that I'm not familiar with, too.
I usually read a story and I figure out what it's about, and then I tell you what it's about because it's cool.
Yeah.
So I wrote 55 things down. 35 of those have question marks after them.
55 things you didn't know about Led Zeppelin. Coming up next.
Not even close. Not even
Probably.
close. No.
I last night I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta listen to the song before we go into the podcast. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, I realized I am so familiar with this
Yeah, you
song.
know it already.
I could almost play the whole song on guitar at one point. So
Really?
I was I very much know this song.
Wow, okay.
To the
Okay,
point
so
where-
then I really do want to know what your answers to some of these questions are, maybe.
Well, I realized last night, I'm like, this is kind of exciting because I don't think I've ever questioned what the song's actually about.
I didn't either. When I started
Like,
looking
there's
into
all these
it,
things in there, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, she can get whatever she wants? Like, where the fuck is this?
yeah.
But
Like, it
I
seems
was,
obvious when you first hear it, and then you go, wait, what does this mean?
Well, I think it's because Stairway to Heaven sounds like you're like, oh, that's what the song's about. Kind of like Highway to Hell. It's like, well, that's what it's about, right? Of course. But I listened to a live version last night, and I was impressed at first. Well, I mean, I was impressed by the whole thing because they're very talented. And what Dad said when we were kids that I never understood until I grew up was, he said the great thing about a Zeppelin concert is that they're never the same. Two people could go to different Zeppelin concerts and get completely different experiences.
Whoa.
Because they were so talented. They changed with things. They understood the essence of their songs so well they were able to change things up, and yet still the essence exists. The way that you notice when you hear a cover of a song that the essence is still there,
But
even
it's
though
different.
Like I was just listening to "Hurt." You know, the Johnny Cash did
Oh,
"Hurt,"
yeah.
but that's a cover of Nine Inch Nails.
That's so weird. That
Yeah.
He did a cover of Nine Inch Nails.
So when you
And
go
his
like,
is so much better.
well, I'm pretty sure Trent Reznor even said,
Yeah.
like, you did it better.
You keep it.
It's yours." But which has happened a couple times. But the like Johnny Cash's is like ding ding ding, boom boom boom, while his Trent Reznor's is like boom boom bow. It has like this weird like tinge to
It's
it.
the same, but different.
And yeah, what's cool about it is like I prefer the guitar on Nine Inch Nails, but I prefer the voice on Johnny Cash. I wish someone could slam them together.
Ooh, that would be interesting. Because I have a buddy who every time he gets really wasted and wakes up hungover the next day, he puts that song on.
I hurt myself.
I hurt myself today.
But I was impressed by this Zeppelin live because at the beginning, Jimmy Page is putting extra notes that aren't in the original version, but you can still feel what it's supposed to be. And I'm pretty sure Zeppelin was famous for getting really fucked before going on stage. Like, they all
Probably.
seem really out of it.
That era.
And yeah, especially Jimmy Page, like, he looks exhausted. And there's a part where the famous solo comes up, and he misses it. Like, his timing is
What?
off. Like, the cue is completely off.
No.
Because I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for a bow, it doesn't
Like
happen.
right between
Yeah.
8 and 9.
Yeah, he keeps going. And then, I'm glad you have the timing on that, because I was going to mention that. But, and then he starts it, but on a different like he waits for the part of the song to come back around before he starts the solo up again.
Oh, so it like adds an extra like minute to the song.
Yeah, well, no, it's like I think it's like the next bar or something.
Okay.
Like the next set of 4 or whatever,
Yeah.
however music works. But it was interesting because at first I'm like, you missed it completely. Like, and you can tell he's like kind of like looking around. He's like, oh no, but then he like catches up with it and does it really well. I mean, it's kind of sloppy.
It's obvious there's a delay.
Yeah, I mean, as a guitar player, I can hear the difference between his studio version and his live version. But then after the sloppy part, he makes up for it by making the solo completely different than what I remember and making it better.
Oh.
So the whole thing was very interesting. Like, you can see a dude in the background at one point who's on the keyboards, and he's like looking at him, like, what's going on over there?
You missed it, bro.
It's kind of hard to tell because it's really blurry. Like, all you can see is just his
it's
outline.
potato quality.
But I'm sitting here like laughing at this dude's reaction of like, "You all right? You okay, Jimmy?"
You pick it up. So yeah, I listen to whatever you like. I find that there's a couple good versions. If I'm looking for something and I can't find the official, I'll just go Led Zeppelin lyrics. Or sorry, Stairway to Heaven lyrics, because in that way at least someone's done something close to a transformative work, and like you're at least like crediting someone for doing something, and the quality is usually really high.
Yeah.
So either way, listen to it, but we obviously have the lyrics listed here for you.
Is it on Spotify?
I'm not sure actually. I never really checked if it was on there because I'm always listening to it in the car. I just throw it on as I'm driving. You know, it's an 8-minute song, so if you're driving across town, like the song's done by the time you get to your destination.
That's true.
Right? Although sometimes it's confusing because it takes so long to get to the first set of words. I like to sing along to each of these songs. I like to learn all the lyrics off by heart before we do these things.
I like to do the Peter Griffin thing.
The Peter Griffin thing?
Like to Kashmir, it's like yeah. When there's no lyrics, I do that like the beep 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 beep.
Yeah, well, because if you are just sitting there, you kind of miss it. It's like 45 seconds later, and then all of a sudden, you're just listening to it because it's a sick song, and you realize, shit, I missed the whole first. Okay, well, it's the same as what Jimmy Page did. You're like, I'll just pick it up on the next one.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'll just start off with questions. So, in 1A, who's the lady? The lady who's sure? I mean, so my best guess, if you go to 9B, it says, there walks a lady we all know.
Oh.
Right? So
Betty White.
Yeah, that's the lady we all know.
Everyone knows that Betty White, don't they?
And I mean, she is buying a Stairway to Heaven.
Probably.
You know, she's building her way there.
She's got the money for it.
Well, no, she's buying it with what she does, not with what she has.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Okay.
So I think there's only 2 ladies that kind of make sense when you think of ladies we all know. So there's Mother Nature.
Oh.
Or Lady Law.
Interesting.
Those are the 2 things that I was thinking.
With a word, she can get what she came for.
Yeah, well, I mean, even before that, it says she's buying a Stairway to Heaven. What's she buying it with? Because she says that all that glitters is gold. Does that mean she's legitimately buying a Stairway to Heaven with gold, like the way you purchase something?
What does that mean, though? All that glitters is gold.
I was thinking about this.
That's an old saying. That's it.
Oh, that is an old saying.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never really thought of the old saying.
It's even in a Smash Mouth lyric, so you know it's real.
It's probably where I first heard it. Shrek.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably the first time.
Yeah. It's also the first time I ever heard breaking the mold.
Well, oh, yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure...
Break the mold.
I thought breaking the mold meant that they were ugly, but maybe it means they're beautiful. Like, you know those shows that are only beautiful people?
Yeah.
Like,
like The Young and the Restless?
Yeah, like Hannibal, the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Hannibal. Every single person in that show is absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne is beautiful.
He's a beautiful
all right?
man, okay.
There's like a list of people in the world that I want to hug from, and Lawrence Fishburne is in the top group there. I mean, Jason Momoa has to be up there. And now that's like I've been looking for a Jason Momoa hug since before Aquaman, all right? So what I'm saying is
he the
I
Khal
liked him.
Drogo guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
I liked him before he was cool is what I'm trying to say here.
You want to be anywhere near that guy?
Fuck yeah.
I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's very intimidating.
Of course he is. That's like the biggest reason why I want hugs from people. Lawrence Fishburne's intimidating too.
Very intimidating.
You seen him like his face in the Matrix when he's getting interrogated and he's like.
Oh yeah, that's a very weird one.
Yeah, anyone who runs in slow motion, is intimidating.
Anyone who runs in slow motion, anybody with a camera.
You have to have a high. You have to capture.
No, you can reduce it to 15 frames a second. It'll
No,
still
you
be
can't.
slow motion.
That's not slow motion.
Sure it is.
That's a fucking.
It's janky motion, but it's
a
slow.
slideshow. That's not how it works. All right.
This is a slideshow of me running slowly.
Exactly.
So with the everything glitters turns to gold. If it is Mother Nature, to me that means like rocks, water, sunlight. All these things are useless
They
on their
glitter.
own. But well,
There's a glimmer of like on water and
that's a good point actually.
light.
And like even on rocks when they're wet.
Interesting.
But I think it's the idea that all these things that the sun touches eventually become something productive. They become us, they become food, they become,
Interesting.
I think that's supposed to be what she's getting at, but that means I have no idea what the stairway is. Like, if she's buying it with the versatility of the earth, then what is the stairway?
I think a stairway is just how you get to heaven, right? Because it's always hypothesized that it's in the sky.
So that's what I was thinking. I think the stairway is our death. I think the stairway is the moment of your death.
Or maybe your stairway is a path you take in life. That you keep trying to take one step at a time, slowly getting closer and closer.
Yeah, I was originally thinking that as well.
Until you get a hedgerow. If there's a bustle in your... Oh, we haven't got to that part. But
yeah, we still got a lot to go through, but I have it written down somewhere here. Yeah, well, because later he says, as we wind on down the road. So the road can't be life and the stairway be life. So I think the road is your life and the stairway is your death taking you up to heaven.
Okay.
I'm thinking that.
Yeah, the road probably leads to the bottom of the stairway.
Yeah, which is what Mother Nature is trying to buy for you by,
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, well, let's just keep moving.
What does that mean though? Why would what Mother Nature be buying this?
Unless it's not Mother Nature. What if it's Lady Law? What if
But why would Lady Law buy a stairway?
What if Lady Law is an extension of us, right? Like we create law. So what if we're trying to bully our way into heaven by buying a staircase with all this shit we've farmed up from the earth?
Like Lady Law, is Lady Law meaning like the justice system?
Yeah.
Maybe like because the justice system for the most part resembles what we consider to be right and wrong.
Yeah, more or less.
So maybe he's referring to we're buying a stairway to heaven by choosing to set these rules out and believing that if we follow these, that we will be building a stairway to heaven.
Yeah, because she's the lady we're crowding behind, right?
Interesting.
So then it goes on to say, when she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
Let's unpack it one piece at a time. So she knows that she has this ability to get whatever she wants, right?
Right.
B, she can get what she came for. So why does she have this ability and know she has this ability to just like get what she wants, even if...
Right.
I mean, the stores being closed is sort of like a philosophical, you can't get what you came to buy.
Right.
But still she can get it somehow.
With a warrant.
With a word. Yeah, with a word she can get what she came for.
The word is warrant. A warrant gets you what you came for. The stores are closed, but you have a warrant so you can go in.
I suppose, but that's like you don't get anything like.
Oh, and the lady is Lady Justice.
Yeah, Lady
Justice.
Justice.
What's her name? The one that's blindfolded?
Lady Liberty.
Lady Liberty.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No?
Because justice isn't about liberty. It's actually about the opposite.
Or maybe
it's about taking liberty away from people.
In some cases.
Yeah.
But like ideally, at least, well, I don't know about the States, but in Canada, the law is designed so that the first goal is restitution of the victim. Then like the next step is like punishment.
Right.
So like most things, if it's you stole or you did whatever, you get like community service. You get like those types of things, right? Where you actually have to fix what you broke.
I think it should almost always be that.
It is. It just doesn't work when someone murders somebody. Right. You can't,
You can't bring it back.
Exactly.
But what I mean is like, if someone steals from somebody and then you're just like, get in this hole. The person doesn't get their money back. And now you spend more money
to hold
keeping that person in a hole.
They don't learn the lesson.
That person should have to pay more back. Right? Steal 50 grand, give back 60.
Yeah, but you also have to understand people steal because they're poor. So if you make poor people who are stealing have to pay back, like that's what happened with Germany. That is exactly what happened with Germany.
No, I'm not like
at the end of the First
poor
World
people
War.
don't go after $50,000 in one go. I mean, maybe they do.
I mean, it depends. Look
Sure
at Fast
they
and the
do.
Furious.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I hear they're making like another 3 of those.
Yeah, they signed on for like Fast and the Furious 2, 4,
Too
fast.
Too Furious.
Yeah, 2, 4, 2 Furious.
Too Furious. It's all
24th
about,
installment.
It's all about drinking and driving. Too Furious.
Oh my god.
Don't drink and drive, fuckface.
So also, why is she buying this stairway in a store? Like what?
Oh, because that's how you buy.
Store.
That's how you like. That's what have. Oh, it's about consumerism and commercialism. Buying
in a lot of ways.
Buying things is like heaven. It's the way. It's like the reason why I put so much money into video games, because they give me like the best feeling that I can get out of things that I know.
It's like Bo Burnham says, like heaven on earth, right? Like why can't this?
What if life on earth is like heaven?
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love that song.
Yeah, doesn't the thought of it make it worth a try?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a shout out to Bo right there.
You go, Bo.
So she came for the stairway to heaven is what we're assuming,
right,
in 1B, right? And that seems to make sense. And then, I mean, it's nothing really to 1C. It starts to get weird with the sign, because my first question is, there's the 2 meanings, like, because words can have 2 meanings.
Mm-hmm.
So is that supposed to be, like, is that supposed to be the duality of, there's a legal system, but a legal system is not black and white. You can read something out of a book and interpret what it means the same way someone can read the Bible and like reinterpret it.
Yeah, where's the 2 meanings? Oh, there.
So in 2A, right at the end,
a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, because okay, so she wants to be sure that the sign on the wall means what she thinks it means,
yes,
because it could have a different meaning.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that, I think, points to like some of the fragility of having written rules, is that there's no intent in a written rule.
Right.
There's just the words.
Right.
But the other question is, what the fuck is written on the sign? Because it doesn't even say. It just says there is a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure. Sure of what?
Well, it's kind of like that sign that I used to make fun of, that is supposed to read, no, what's it called? No loitering. Perpetrators will be what the fuck? Oh fuck! How many
prosecuted?
Yeah. Perpetrators will be prosecuted, but there was no punctuation, so it's no loitering perpetrators will be prosecuted.
Oh no!
So
you could actually, if you took a picture of that and you went to court, you could probably say, "Hey, listen, like this looked like it was inviting us on." Yeah. I'm not even kidding. They might agree with you because there's no punctuation.
Exactly. It's so simple. Like just a small space. It's like, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
An even better question. So, A, what does the sign say? B, what wall? It just says there's a sign on the wall. What wall? Is that supposed to be like the writing is on the wall?
Could be.
Like...
Although I've never understood that. I don't think I've ever had like a good enough explanation of what that means.
Oh, the writing's on the wall? Oh, so that would be like, I'm working at a place and I'm not quitting today, but the writing's all over the wall that I can't be here forever. Or like, so I'm really with obvious. My girlfriend and, things are okay, but the writing's all over the wall that this is going to have to end soon. Yeah, so it's one of those things that it's almost like, we've got onto a track that we're going inevitably to a certain end. So the writing is all over the wall. It's almost like there's warning signs everywhere that we're heading to doom.
So the sign on the wall appears obvious, but may have a second meaning.
Yes. So I'm guessing even though it says like a sign, it's supposed to be, like a figurative sign, not like a physical sign.
Interesting.
So I'm guessing the sign on the wall being like the fact that the world's falling apart around us and we're polluting our own environment and shit. And I guess the question is, does that mean we should work in a way where we're not going to destroy the earth, or should we stop working altogether? Should we try and go back a little, try and live in less space, try and build up more? There's just small examples, but then it says something very weird. So in 2B, the songbird who sings that sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven.
Isn't it misleading?
No.
Oh.
Nope. So this is the question. It says, this is the logical ambiguity. logical ambiguity. If you watch Blacklist second season, you will have another big logical ambiguity.
Right.
I won't give that away.
This, yes.
So it says, sometimes all of our thoughts are misgivings. So is this saying all of our thoughts, as in all people in the world, are misgiving? Or is it saying all thoughts of ours, meaning like mine, are misgiven?
He says sometimes all of our thoughts.
Yes. So what he's saying is that not always, but sometimes every single thought a person has is misgiven. Right? And so because he's saying it all times, all of what he's saying is that all people in the world, sometimes all of the ideas in their head are wrong.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to say.
I think it's like, kind of reminds me of To Kill a Mockingbird, where every single person in that town, except for Atticus, believes his client is guilty.
Yeah.
Every single person chooses to believe that except for him.
Yeah, even though they're wrong.
They're wrong, yeah.
So I think part of it is, like, I think it's a reference to the fact that like a lot of people have totally forgot about the natural order of things, right? Like there's some people who believe that lions are cuddly creatures, and some people who think that bears are cute.
Yeah, leave the bears alone and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's that, but then there's also the side of us where like some people have major depression, even though there's nothing like outwardly wrong. You know, they're in great health, they have a good family, but they're depressed because of whatever reason. Well, like those are misgiven thoughts. It's not like anyone thinks those thoughts are supposed to be what they're thinking.
Right.
It's that they're stuck in there, right?
Yeah, it was like with me a couple months ago. I didn't feel confident in what I was doing on the show, and it was translating to the show, and I can still see it when I watch old stuff. And I realized one day that I just suddenly had this, like a different view on life, even though nothing externally changed. I had the same job. We recorded at the same rate. Our YouTube numbers were the same. Nothing changed, and yet I felt significantly better.
Everything was different.
Yeah, misgiven thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's just the idea that sometimes it happens to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? If you assume you're incapable of that, you know, you're already lost. And I think the reason it's like a songbird who sings, I think that's supposed to be because you usually get shown those type of things when you go into nature, right? Like a lot of people, the humbling moments in their lives happen when they're in nature.
Yeah, well, it's all the, like, there's times where there's definitely times where I've intentionally clouded my thoughts by always keeping some sort of audio thing going on behind me, instead of sitting in silence.
Yep.
Because for a long time I was afraid of the silence, of what I would think about in the silence. There's a Pink song where she talks about that.
Really?
I think it's about substance abuse, how she never wants to be the one person still awake at 3 a.m. or something like that. Like she wants the party to keep going because she never wants to stop.
Huh.
Kind of like the Jesse Pinkman situation where he just throws money at people to make sure that they continuously party for like a week straight.
And they're all like, yeah, we gotta go home and sleep.
And but he's dealing with such an extreme situation that he can't deal with. As soon as people leave, what happened to me, I went through a really hard time a couple of years ago and went straight from that hard time into a really busy home, and then went to vacation with you and Dad. And then when I came back from vacation, everyone in my house had gone for vacation as well.
Ooh.
So I went from like 6 months of dealing with crazy shit, but always surrounded by people and parties, to a full week of just me.
Oh, that must have been crazy.
It was like 6 months of things I hadn't thought about all hit me at the same time. It was like probably one of the worst times of my life. And it was only like, I didn't like the people I lived with that much, but I was so happy they got back. I rushed upstairs. I'm like, hey, how was your fucking time? I missed you guys. Anyway.
Just alone, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I think it's important to always remember that.
Yeah. It's quickly turned into like Mitch's relation to the Stairway to Heaven, but
no, but that's the whole point of this song, right? We're trying to stitch together this narrative, but I find certain parts in the song almost seem contradictory to themselves. So I don't know if there is one narrative you can take out of it.
Maybe they're supposed to be,
but it's the fact that we're talking about it. That's the important part, right?
Yeah.
And then this is the big question. I don't think anyone's ever asked this question before, although I may be wrong. What makes him wonder?
What does he say? What's the
He
context?
says, ooh, it makes me wonder. He says it 4 times in the song. Ooh, and it makes me wonder. Oh yeah, there's gonna be bad Robert Plant and Jimmy Page impressions in this. I'm warning them.
Jimmy doesn't. He doesn't sing.
I know, but I don't know. Someone's gonna sing the guitar.
Beep 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 beep. That's bass.
Yeah, that's not Jimmy Page at all. That's bullshit. Yeah, so he says it makes me wonder 4 times. So what's he wondering about?
You only wrote it twice. Oh no, I can see what you mean.
And it makes me wonder.
It really makes me wonder. He had to add that. Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool the way it fits into the song. It sounds really good when he does it that way.
There's so many lyrics here that I never knew. Like, I thought it was sometimes all of our thoughts are misleading.
At least it's the same meaning.
And I always thought he said, and the voices that stand apart. I never knew it was who's standing looking. Is that what it's supposed to say?
No, it's stand.
Stand looking?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I didn't type these, actually.
The handout won't say that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in here that I didn't really know about when I first did it. One of them I noticed was when he says, sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven. He does this really weird inflection in the version I have. I don't know if it's in all of them, but he goes, sometimes all. It's just weird. Like, he pronounces that one word, and you're like, that didn't sound like singing at all. It's
the last time he says stairway to or buying, he says buying.
Oh, really?
Like the way like a broken English would say.
Yeah, like almost like he's sick. And she's buying a stair. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
I know people that like bugs the shit out of them.
Dad one of them?
No.
Okay.
No, I think Dad likes the song, although I don't think it's his favorite.
He introduced us to it.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt that.
Well, probably after we watched Wayne's World, right? No stairway. Denied.
Oh. Yeah. What's funny, like, I think, no, is it Stairway? No, sorry. Never mind. Stairway's fairly complicated. I think it's mostly chords at the beginning. Like, it's just you're single picking chords.
Flute, I think, is also in it. That's what makes it so complex.
Yes.
And you get one in each ear.
Yeah, I like
which
that.
is pretty sweet.
But no, what I was thinking was there's a Metallica song where the whole beginning is almost entirely open notes. It's like really fucking cool. Like
really?
he's putting down like 2 frets, but he's hitting like 5 strings each time. It's because he just figured out which open notes sound really good together.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just when you were talking about the solo from this, I always think about one as having one of the most unbelievable solos and intros and.
Well, I think Conquise is up there with the greatest solos ever.
Conquise?
By Audio Slave.
Oh my God, Cochise.
Cochise. Conchise.
Cochise.
No one can. Wow, woo. It's like a fucking siren in the background.
That's exactly what it's like.
You could honestly have that going, and there could be like an ambulance behind you, fucking giving you the finger.
You wouldn't even know. Yeah.
Woo, woo. I think Is it Tom Morello?
Tom Morello. Yeah.
Morello. I think he's fucking great, but that song really does not demonstrate
really
his
high
talent.
on drugs when he did that song.
I think it's probably best said. Like, I guess I won't want to say who said it, but they said it sounds like he's experimenting with a new pedal. Like it doesn't sound like it's supposed to be in the song. It was just something he did like off.
Yeah, and I love how it just kind of ends too. It's not like it trails off. It just woo, and then they go right back into the song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go listen to Cochise by Audio Slave if you want to hear some rip roaring good wah pedaling.
Just listen to Audio Slave in general.
Well, they're cool, but start with Cochise because it's hilarious.
And then hit up some Rage.
The original fire is starting on.
And then go hit up some Rage, and then hit up some Chris Cornell.
Oh yeah. But wait, wasn't there one more? Soundgarden. Ooh, that's a hype riff.
I saw a cover band live play Chili Peppers and Audio Slave, and they had a female singer. No, it was Chili Peppers and Rage, sorry. And they had a female singer, and it was fucking great.
Weird.
Yeah.
Cool. So wondering about which lady I think. So I'm thinking it's it makes me wonder, did we make the right choice?
Right.
And that's why I think he keeps wondering, because he actually says it 5 times. I realized he says it in 7 seasons.
We have a lot of stuff in our legal system that's existed since like before a time without internet. Sometimes things that happened before the Second World War.
95% of our law was written before the internet.
Oh,
to imagine.
I mean, it's like
Almost everything.
The context, like there's things in there. Like it's the way that we look at the Bible that was written thousands of years ago, and we notice how some things line up. Like they have different meanings now because we have different words for different meanings, right? Perhaps he's wondering whether these things we established a long time ago still make sense.
And that's a good question. No matter what the thing is that we established.
Exactly.
Well, because then he says in 4a, there's a feeling I get when I look to the west. So west.
Oh, he's talking because aren't they English? They're British, aren't they?
I don't know.
Because I saw a thing of them
They're
on
not American?
BBC. I don't think they're American. Maybe some of them are, but I heard Jimmy Page speak, and it's definitely not from the States.
So then, no, maybe they are a European
I
band.
think they're British. I could be wrong about that, but he's probably referring to the Western culture.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that at all.
Because if you look at the way our cultures go, you have Canada, the States, and then over the pond is the UK and a couple other European places that are all more west than the rest of the world. But then
East compared to us.
Right. Well, the UK is east for us, but what I mean is over in the east is like a very different cultures to the west. Like I always thought of the west as being the States and Canada, but you can include UK
Europe
in there because it's
yeah.
very similar. They have a lot of differences, like they drink tea instead of coffee, but they still have like a similar like setup to how they're
developed.
They're the same the way that they're developed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that like when you read the whole thing, so there's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and my spirit is crying for leaving. So this is where all of a sudden the Lady Law analogy falls apart for me, because to me, looking to the west is the sunset rises in the east, sets in the west. And that's why his spirit is crying for leaving, because I think something's ending. Like there's a lot of old cultures that used to use the rising and setting of the sun to represent the beginning and ending of life.
Right.
So I think that's what they're trying to get at. But then, yeah, that like we've been going with Lady Law through the first 3 paragraphs,
but it could still be that, because in I think it's England or Britain, they do the burden is on the accused to provide evidence that they are not guilty, whereas it's the opposite in Canada and the States. The accuser has to provide evidence.
Wait, in the UK, you're presumed guilty until proven innocent?
No, but it's your response. This is what I've heard, and I haven't looked into this, but I'm fairly certain that's true. I could be wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works in Mexico.
Interesting.
But that actually kind of violates like the very basic idea of the law system, because the whole idea is that you can't throw someone in a cage and be like, if you don't prove that you don't belong here, we're going to put you there. You have to go, if we can prove you belong there, we'll put you there. I mean, I don't know either.
Like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure I heard that from Suits, which is usually pretty good.
He might have been making a sarcastic joke, though.
No, because he said, he's like, we're going to do this in England where the burden of proof needs to be provided by the accused.
Huh.
Yeah. Varys from Game of Thrones says that. But he could be just referring to the legal system he doesn't agree with where he lives. Maybe he's looking to the west because that's where he wants to go because he agrees with that legal system.
Okay.
Could be, yeah. I think what you said works well because the sun sets in the same.
Still a symbolic thing.
I mean, it's the west no matter where you are, right?
Yeah. Well, and also it doesn't have to be. It could be about that.
It's not the west no matter where you are. Now I'm thinking about it.
What do you mean?
If you're in the Arctic Circle, things are a little different. But
well, yeah, but if you're in the Arctic Circle, it just doesn't set at all. So then when he says, "And my spirit is crying for leaving," so here's the question: his spirit is the one crying. Clearly, is his spirit crying because his spirit is leaving him, or his spirit crying because he is leaving wherever he is?
It's crying for leaving. So his spirit wants to leave.
So his spirit is leaving, and that's why it's crying.
But perhaps it's leaving, but his body disagrees.
That's probably why it's crying.
I'm very distracted now because I realize the pattern behind you looks like the pick of destiny. See that right there?
The horns, yeah.
The horns, but look. There's the eyes, and there's the face looks like a devil right there. Yeah, that whole thing, that whole little doodle.
Maybe we'll show a picture.
No.
No, not showing a picture.
No.
Either way, trust us. It's the pod.
It's a podcast, not an iCast.
Oh my God, we do that.
Welcome back to the show. It's in your head buds.
So this is where I think it gets super cool. He says, I caught that headbuds reference. I actually mentioned that to my girlfriend today. I was like, I just keep calling them headbuds because I did it once and I like it.
Hey man, as internet personalities, we will eventually have control over memes and terms and ideas.
If you don't coin things, how are you going to get paid?
Exactly. No, that's not what coining means.
Oh yeah, that was bad. So now I think it gets really interesting because he says in 4B, my thoughts I have seen, so that probably either means a dream or a daydream.
Right.
But to me, that's almost irrelevant. Rings of smoke through the trees. So
rings of smoke.
I originally thought this as being I'm standing at the base of a tree, looking up through the trees to see rings of smoke. But now what I think it means is that there is rings of smoke within, like through the trees. Like I think the forest is filled with smoke.
Or, this is interesting, I had no theories about this song until you keep bringing these things up. Going back to the Lady Law thing. Zeppelin is known for their heavy use of drugs. Perhaps rings of smoke trees is marijuana.
Interesting.
And he's looking to the West because of their acceptance in the 70s in the States. There was a massive awakening for drugs, right?
No, the 60s. The 70s is when they started arresting people and beating hippies for it.
Right. But in the 70s is when Zeppelin was popular, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps it's the relaxed, it's the people's response to marijuana in the West that he's looking towards. Maybe it's something to do with his spirit. I don't know enough about England. Maybe in England there was a much harder approach to illicit drugs.
In my thoughts, I've seen rings of smoke through the trees. Interesting. That could be.
When you said rings of smoke, the first thing I thought of was Gandalf.
Yeah. Okay.
And the second thing I thought was, what's he smoking?
And
right?
Yeah, what trees?
He's got a pipe. And trees is a term for weed. I mean, there's like a 1,000 versions of. So like you could find weed references in every song, but that could actually be it.
Well, because what I thought was that it was rings of smoke through the trees, being like the destruction of the trees. Because the next line is, and the voices of those who stand looking. So to me, that means the voiceless masses, you, me, our parents and friends, the people who just...
Bystanders.
People who just, we put money into the system such that... I mean, I'm actually worse. I do pre-development work for like residential areas, right? So I go into a farm field or a forest and I slate it for destruction and being turned into fucking houses. Like, I'm the worst. I'm the voice who doesn't even stand looking. I'm the voice who like actively puts rings of smoke in the trees.
But you also do a show where we promote happiness.
I'm pro-earth.
Well, we talk about I think it's kind of presumptuous, but what I'm trying to do with the show is trying to show people a different way of looking at things, that even though we can love Gears of War, but we can shit all over its boss fights and kind of thing, where it's like, even though I very much dislike this thing, I still love this entire game and accept it for what it has. But also, we often have this like really positive look on something that is like bad, like when we play a bad game, right?
Yeah, you can learn from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I suppose what I do is necessary, right? Like you can't build a community without developing land around it.
Like people, I'm team people. I think that Canada has a fuck ton of empty space, or not non-human.
Non-populated space.
Exactly. Like if you look at the lights.
Empty space as if it's just these caverns, these massive, just empty areas.
It's just like the static.
Just
it's
fuzz
just like,
on the core screen.
Someone needs to plant some trees here. It's not like you're eating up like the last remaining empty spaces. It's not like you're like, ooh, what a lovely forest. We should put a cancer-creating factory here.
It's true. And also, it's one thing to build communities. I think it's a little strange when you start building these houses that have like 15,000 square feet. When you imagine that like the apartment that we're in is probably like 1,100, 1,200?
I don't even know. 1,200 sounds
Something
right.
like that. Yeah, well, yeah, just guessing. So imagine like a 15,000 square foot home.
I only have 2 feet, so it doesn't really
And
matter.
some people will have those homes and only live in them for like 6 days out of the year.
Yeah.
And then the rest they have people like paying people to take care of them.
You know what happens to those homes?
What?
They get squatted in.
No, they don't, because they have people taking care of them, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Who
have.
pay the housekeepers.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, that probably does happen when you know they're not coming back.
Exactly.
But then there's also people who will buy, so like people from China, Japan, India, a lot of other like really wealthy countries, the UAE, they'll buy homes over here because they're worth $1 million a lot, and they won't live in them. They'll just use it to hold money in Canada.
Right.
So that's where it gets weird, and that's where I sometimes understand why people get frustrated with the way we live nowadays. You know, someone who's packed into a slum somewhere in Detroit is like justified in going, you piece of shit, with your 15,000 square foot home on a lake.
I see that. As a person without a 15,000 square foot home, I mean, I grind to make money. I do a shitty job to make like pennies essentially, and I'm not mad at like people who have 16 homes all around the world, because I think that the system is based. I think you should have a solution if you disagree with something big like that. So how would you propose the world be run not on money?
Well, no, that's not what I mean. The solution is that guy, he gets a timeshare,
right,
rather than buying a home and leaving it empty.
Right.
Or he just chooses a place he likes and visits other places. Like there's ways that we could, like the same thing.
Yeah.
You could hold money here in real estate, which is awesome, but you could also hold money here in other ways that don't like take up space people are trying to live in. Like I guess that's what I mean.
I agree. However, someone who could afford a 50,000 square foot home doesn't need that one. They're gonna find another one. I understand what you're saying. Like I'm not agreeing with buying a home to not live in it. What I'm saying is, I like how we have a system where if you choose
to do that,
you can. That no one's like, no, you have to live in that space in order to purchase it.
I guess it's almost like if you want, you can legally go get like a well license and then just pump water out of an aquifer onto the ground. Just
felt like
just
it, yeah.
Just for the fuck of it.
Well, it's
you
could,
right?
Like, look at that space near where we lived for the longest time. That's been claiming they're gonna build a fucking.
No, they're going to.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, I know someone who moved in 12 years before we moved here, which was 12 years ago, and that sign's been up since then.
Yeah.
So you got a sign that says this space will be used, and it's up there for 25 years. At the same time, it's like, yes, that giant home could have been used for like 100 families that live in slums, but also it's like, it's not like there's so much space that is unutilized and free to be utilized that this conversation got very into
political
home building out of nowhere.
Well, we're living in a place where like homes are just rocketing in prices.
Yeah, and places like Ontario is booming.
Yeah, that's true. And people are like, get back to the fucking 4B. We never got through 4B. So yeah, those are us. Those are the voiceless people buying homes and chilling and going, I want a Wendy's burger. And we're the people who are fueling all of this lady law shit, right? We're the voices who stand looking. That's all we do. We stand, we look, and we take what we can get, and we accept it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's almost like a lot of people will say that the world is like one big brain. And we're learning at 1 million miles a second, and we're also hurtling through space at the same speed. And we don't really know where we're going in a theoretical sense. We know where we're physically going. But we don't know what the ultimate goal is of all this.
Like, you look at hypothesized versions of 2015, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like, we've already passed the day that Back to the Future talked about.
It's a little different when you have like a movie version, because a movie version is not supposed to be like a realistic consideration of what we might be at that time. Some cases, but you imagine a movie like Blade Runner, they're going like, okay, let's just set it far enough in the future that we can do whatever we want. That's why it's smart when a movie goes like 2274.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at least by then we'll either be dead or we'll have flying cars, right?
It's at that point it'll be like a relic.
Yeah, no one even know about it. It'll be
Yeah.
Earthling Cinema, but for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know, is it Wisecrack?
Yes.
Yeah, Wisecrack is Earthling Cinema, and it's
Garrick's Wormuloid.
very clever, very funny, I think, and it's kind of neat that it's the philosophy of, right? That's what they jump into?
No. Oh. No, Philosophy of is also Wisecrack, but it's a separate video.
Are you sure? I thought, okay, maybe.
Yeah, because Philosophy of has no visual. There's no face.
Oh, okay.
The hidden meaning is
Hidden meaning.
Earthling
there you
Cinema.
go.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
Earthling
like
Cinema.
they make a lot of great jokes, and they try to make jokes about how a future alien civilization would not
Would
give a
view
fuck about most of our things. But in the end, the allegories are spot on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like when he's
they're
like,
very
Zootopia is an
insightful.
allegory for racism in the States or something like that, or like or
Okay.
class-based prejudice or something like that. Like that part is always bang on.
Yeah. So now that we have this world established, he says it's whispered that soon, if we all call the tune, quote unquote, then the piper will lead us to reason. That's 6A. So it's whispered that soon. To me, that means like it's whispered among the people.
Yes, that it will happen soon.
As 1984 would say, the proles, the proletarians.
Proletarians.
So I think it's whispered that if we all whisper this same thing, if we're all on this same wavelength, then some sort of leader will emerge.
Piper.
I think he's a leader.
I think he's referring to himself. The piper.
Maybe.
The piper would be a musical person.
Well,
that is looked upon.
if you jump like really far ahead to 9C, he says, and if you listen very hard, the tune will come to you at last. I think that's an indication that the tune is buried somewhere in this song. I think that's why they say that there. If you listen very hard, which believe me, I did. I probably listened to this song like 40 or 50 times.
Holy shit.
I do. I get prepared for these things, man.
Wow.
I can sing the whole thing. I just won't because I don't want to put people through that.
I love that. I was just talking to somebody about how the other day in that Gears session, you're like, I like the discussions because I feel like it's the only time I contribute. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like you're the more contributor to the show than I am, actually. So it's nice because normally you find two, like it's more common for a duo for each of them to believe that they are the one that contributes more.
Yeah, the
and
more
like,
important part.
It leads to an inevitable problem in the future, like a butting of heads that causes like the content to lose out more than anything, right? You don't want people fighting for the spotlight, and we're both really good at stopping to let the other person talk,
which is hard.
Yeah, very hard actually.
It's weird because you watch a lot of podcasts and a lot of people go on these really long runs where they'll talk for like 3 or 4 minutes, and I don't watch them, so I never have to look at the other person's face as they just nod.
Yeah, it gets like
Right?
there's times where I'm like, why is there a video? Like at first I'm like, why is there video on Joe Rogan podcasts? Why is that necessary? And I found myself sitting there for 15 minutes just watching it, and I just realized I've been sitting here watching it.
You wasted 15 minutes.
Well, no, that's not how I'm sitting here wondering, but then realized I've been watching it the whole time. Like,
so that's why.
it's like when I've told people, like I rarely tell people about Bros Play because they just don't get it, right? And they're like, why would someone watch you play video games? And I'm like, you'll have to ask them.
That's a good answer.
It's like,
That's a really good answer.
why? It's like, why do you watch this show? It's like the way that I can watch, like, there's times where I'm really into well-crafted HBO content, and other times where I just want to watch two dudes saying a bunch of dumb shit that has never been written or thought of until that moment. The two things are completely different. They generate different amounts of content, but it's totally about how I
you're
feel
into.
at the time. Like sometimes I really want to watch Blacklist, and sometimes I really want to watch Super Mega, and while I'm watching one, the other feels not incomplete, but like it feels like lesser of an entertainment format. But
Because
then
you're enjoying the other one.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, one thing I found is TED Talks for me are great for that because I'll sit down in the morning to eat and I can throw on like a 15-minute TED Talk.
Right.
And it's cool because it's half prepared, half spontaneous.
Yeah.
And you just get to listen to some really interesting people. Like Michael Shermer did a really good one. Michael Shermer's the famous skeptic.
Famous skeptic.
Yeah, he's like a really notable skeptic, and he also he's part of like a skeptic foundation.
Oh.
And he just pointed out a lot of things. Actually, he showed a segment of Stairway to Heaven played backwards.
What?
So 7, if there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. Like that whole part.
Yeah.
So he played that in reverse, and it sounds like he's talking to Satan, and he showed like all the words. And it was just an example of how like, this shit just happens.
Well, Hit Me Baby One More Time backwards is Sleep With Me, I'm Not Too Young.
I would love to hear that to see how close it actually is.
It's like a robot saying it.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with Stairway to Heaven. It's like, come with me to Satan. Like, it doesn't sound like he's speaking. It's just, it's still there, though. The message exists.
Yeah.
It's like that in The Simpsons. There's that song at Yvonne Niage. And they play it backwards. Join the Navy.
But that's clearly
it's so
parody,
obvious.
intended as parody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the piper is one of two things. He's either a leader, like a white leader, white collar leader, like Barack Obama.
Oh, white collar, right?
Not. But so, so if he's either a leader who,
what you didn't see was Derek point to himself, as then to say like white,
not white. So there's either that kind of a leader or a rebel leader. I think it has to be one of those two. It's either someone who's within the system and wants to lead us the right way, or it's someone outside the system who believes the system's failed and that the only way to go forward is to rebel. And I think the piper has to be one of those two.
I think both are
those two polarizing objects.
good ideas, yeah.
Well, because they're opposite sides of the same coin in a way.
Right.
One lives in the light, one lives in the shadow, but ultimately their goals are the same. And I think that's why the piper will not bring people to reason until all the people hold the tune, right? Because if the people aren't behind you, there's no a rebel leader can't thrive without the people,
right?
And a real leader can't thrive without the people either.
Yeah.
So it says, and a new day will dawn for those who stand long. I feel like that one is a little obvious. I mean, actually,
right. Well, those who follow and stand behind this idea.
I was sitting there in front of it. I was like, yeah, there's nothing that can be said about that. It's like a new day will dawn for those who stand long. I'm like, I'm not even going to write anything down. Like, there's nothing to write there. And then I probably read it like 6 or 7 times. I was like, what? Like, what could he mean by this? And I think it really is that, like, when you are in some sort of a rebellion, like, you have to stand long, right? You have to
hold strong.
Yeah, you have to push past things that people would otherwise, like, you can't go home and be comfortable. That's not part of a rebellion, right? And it's even saying a new day will dawn, but only for those who stand long. So it seems like the other people will somehow be lost in the struggle, right? And I don't know if that means that they...
I think this still stands with the parallels to marijuana legalization.
That's true, because all the ones who don't stand long do get lost along the way.
Yeah.
They get snatched up and locked in boxes.
Well, I think what he means is that, like, that it's an awakening. It's probably even not even just marijuana. It's probably he's referring to all psychedelic drugs. That it's like a new day will dawn is like it's like a new way of looking at life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because in C he says, and the forest will echo with laughter. So originally I thought that's people in the trees laughing, but I'm starting to wonder whether that's actually the trees themselves laughing.
This could be about just general, the way that humans just consume the earth.
I think so. I think it's more about how detrimental what we believe to be the best things for us are. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that have to be done a certain way to keep doing what we're doing, but we never bother to question, should we keep doing what we're doing?
Right.
I think that's what they're trying to point out.
Yeah, it's probably pretty.
But I think it's both. I think really there's sort of like 3 ladies. There's Mother Nature, there's the true expression of Lady Law, like the immutable law of all things, and then there's Lady Liberty, human law. I think those are the 3 ladies, and I think 2 of them might be the same one, like the immutable laws of nature, and Mother Nature herself might be the same thing. But I think the whole song is kind of getting to the idea that the tune hasn't come to us yet. The tune hasn't arrived to show us what, we're missing.
Right.
And maybe this song is supposed to be how we do that. In 7A, it's ruthless because this is one of my favorite parts because the music drops, like the tune changes, and immediately he goes into if there's a bustle in your hedgerow.
Yeah.
So if there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a spring clean for the May Queen.
Which I never knew what he said there.
Yeah, because it's weird. It sounds like he's saying it's just sprinkler for your May Queen.
I thought it was like
just a sprinkler for the Queen.
I thought it was like sprinkler for Vanquish or Vanqueen or something like that.
See, that's the problem. So first of all, the May Queen is just like a personification of spring. Oh. Like when they do parades, they have a little girl. They'll name her like the May Queen.
Right.
When they do parades and.
So what is a bustle and what is a hedgerow?
So a bustle just means like shaking.
Right.
And a hedgerow is exactly what it sounds like, a row of hedges. So what I'm thinking is the bustle in the hedgerow is a spring clean for the May Queen being like Mother Nature again. So I'm thinking the bustle in the hedgerow is one animal getting jacked by another animal. And he's saying, don't be alarmed because this is just spring clean. This is the natural order of the world.
Or it could be more marijuana references.
Could be. It's a hedgerow.
Yeah.
But, it's a hedgerow.
Like, it was an alarming idea. The war on drugs was like a huge fucking thing at the time.
But why would it be a spring clean for the May Queen?
The bustle. The bustle is like shaking things up. They're shaking up people's ideas with. Well, a lot of music at the time was very much about things like that, right?
If there's a bustle in if the hedgerow is like your brain, it's like your ideas.
Or if you're imagining like a really rich, like
rich home,
rich home, and they have these perfect rows of hedges, and suddenly one of them is being shooken up, like it's like
all of them,
all of these you have all the people in a row like a hedge. You've trimmed them to believe what you want them to say. So these people coming along with these new ideas, these Bob Dylans and Zeppelins of the world who are shaking up someone's idea and saying, stop believing everything you're told. Like, I hate teachers. We don't need your education. That's a huge bustle in your hedgerow.
That's true.
The children are the hedges.
A bustle in your hedgerow.
You trim the children to believe what you want them to say because children can be formed, or little sponges. They don't know.
So when there's a bustle there, that's Mother Nature blowing the wind through the hedgerow, getting rid of the bullshit.
Yeah. So it's a spring cleaning, meaning like when you spring clean, you have to take a bunch of the garbage out, right? So suddenly
so
it's
it
like
has to be
when
bustling.
it's kind of like when you're renovating a place. It has to get dirtier before you make it clean. It has to get worse before it gets better. What he's saying is that this shaking up of the foundation of what we believe in is being shooken up, which of course is going to create a lot of confusion and chaos. But that when the dust settles, it will be viewed as a spring clean.
So don't be alarmed.
Which, really, when you look back on it, it kind of was. That awakening in the 60s took a long fucking time.
Yeah.
But it did become legalized in certain states.
It
became decriminalized. A lot of other ones have changed their class.
Canada just announced something.
I heard of that. I wasn't sure if it was going to be official or not.
So apparently, Justin Trudeau has announced that by Canada Day 2018,
which is what day?
What?
What day is Canada Day?
It's July 1st.
July 1st.
Yeah. Come on, dude.
I don't go fuck.
What? But it's Canada Day.
See, I love Canada the way I love you. And I can remember your birthday because I've known you for a long time. But I've
known Canada for just as long.
I don't need to know the day that it was born, right? I don't celebrate. I don't need to. It's kind of like...
It's during the summer, too, so you don't care about the day you get off school, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of like... Oh, that's interesting.
Because in the winter, you would get a day off, and you'd be like, oh, sweet, like it's Easter.
What I mean is, I appreciate Canada every day.
Oh, you don't need a day.
What I mean is like the way that people act differently on Valentine's Day or Christmas.
Yeah.
Instead of just being that fucking nice and romantic all the time.
Yeah.
I understand that Casey Neistat has a great point about marriage. He says you can't blow all the doors off with your gift on year one because every year is going to be you trying to get up to that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I gave my girlfriend or my wife some gifts. They were good gifts, but they weren't amazing gifts. Because I have to give her gifts next year. I'm like, that's an interesting way to look at it. Such a weird
way to look at it.
But what the fuck was I talking about? Oh, the point is, it's not like I will celebrate Canada Day, but I don't need to know what day it is to appreciate Canada because I love Canada every day. I think about it constantly. I'm constantly reminded through my window into the internet how many places are not like Canada.
Yeah. So July 1st is Canada Day. So by July 1st, 2018, his goal is to make it legal for every household to grow 4 marijuana plants.
What? Yeah. I just heard it was legal. I didn't know he wanted us to grow it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never talked about this kind of stuff before, but giving the people the ability to grow it is completely different than just saying it's legal.
Yeah.
It's like if you say, okay, electricity is now legal to use versus everyone is now allowed to have solar panels and wind
generate
farms.
Their own.
The difference between the government will provide you and we are giving you the ability to provide yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I hypothesized, I had like the idea like 5-6 years ago when I was in high school. I was like, what if every single person, every single household provided for itself and all of the other government systems that provide energy were more for like government buildings and streets and all that shit. Like
commercial businesses.
Yeah, what if a house had enough stuff on it to provide pretty much all the energy itself needed, and how much less we would be dependent. Like when the power goes out in an entire city, that's chaos. If that doesn't get fixed in like 24 to 72 hours, that could be a real problem. And that's all riding on sometimes very small spaces that provide energy for everyone. It happened 2 years ago, or 1 year ago. We had an ice storm and the entire city was out.
In an ice storm, that's a problem too.
Yeah, the ice storms were so bad that they set transformers on fire. There were blue fire so big that apartment building right there, I could see it behind it the whole way around. It glowed behind it. Imagine if instead of relying on giant transformers, we all had our own small ones that weren't like, because at that point it's sustainable to not keep this stuff inside, right? Or you could keep this kind of stuff inside if everyone was designed to do that.
Yeah, if your house was designed that way in the first place.
Yeah.
Just make building houses more expensive, but
I think power lines are we're going to look back on power lines and say like, what a bunch of fucking crazy people. Because even on a regular day with rain, there's times where I walk by transformers and I hear them buzzing louder than they ever buzz. And I'm just thinking, how does this not explode more often?
Yeah, it does.
That's what I mean. Like we're leaving our most important source of energy just out in the fucking open. It's like testicles. Well, like you're just leaving this super vulnerable thing like hanging out, no protection.
I mean, the box is designed to insulate it.
What I mean is like the difference with like underground is so much safer from weather.
That is true, but the thing about underground,
way harder to deal with.
Yeah, well, also like so that's one thing that'll happen when you go to get utilities located is if they're all above, they'll just go overhead and like you're clear.
Right.
But if they're underground, they have to come with a scanner and scan to find out physically where it is and paint on the ground, and like the ground is fine, but when you want to repair that wire, you got to go down instead of going just like up in one of those bucket things. But the weird thing about the whole hydro grid is that it's all based off computers. So you remember when the grid went down maybe 10 or 12 years ago?
Yes.
We lived
it was called the Toronto blackout, I think. That's like what they called it.
No, they didn't call it the Toronto blackout because it blacked out
it was Canada-wide.
all of the East Coast. No, it was the States too. It was basically the entire northeastern part of North America went down.
That's right.
And it's because this was back in the day when viruses were still much more primitive. Someone sent a virus in a Word document, which I guess was not very common before. So I have one teacher from when I was in university, and he used to get so upset about this because you're never supposed to have an email on a server, like a safety server computer, right?
Yeah.
A computer that's designed for protection, you never have an email on it. That's the least secure thing in the world.
Security's all about insulation, right?
So somebody opened a Word document that they didn't realize was a virus, and it just propagated through the whole system and shut it down.
Holy shit. And I never knew that. I thought that was a mistake.
Well, it was a mistake, but no, it was someone intended it.
I thought it was like a fuck up. Like I thought it would just weather or something. I had no idea that was in malicious intent.
Some people were down for over 2 weeks. Some people didn't have power for more than 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's scary shit, man. Everything is gone. What you're listening to right now is gone if the internet goes out. Unless you downloaded this to your
computer.
phone.
Yeah.
No, your phone. I mean,
because your computer needs the grid as well, I guess.
Your phone requires data or Wi-Fi. So if you're on Wi-Fi listening to this and the power goes out, it's gone. We're gone. Silence.
Yeah.
If somebody hits that and a satellite, all of our entertainment is gone. You can't even put a DVD in your computer because it doesn't plug into the power. We're so dependent on this extremely fragile thing. Yeah. I mean, our systems are in general fragile on their own. All of those apocalypse movies show how quickly things change.
Food
right?
systems and
like places that provide food have like less than 3 days worth of food because they can't. It wouldn't make sense to have more than that, right?
Yeah.
A huge grocery store, even like a giant one like Costco, they can't keep more than
food for a whole town.
Several days, right?
Yeah.
So after like 3 or 4 days, they're empty. You got nothing there.
That's why you're supposed to have an emergency preparedness kit.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, but you got to imagine, like, a lot of people don't live in spaces large enough to store a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, what's that crazy guy Joe Rogan always talks about who sells, he sells survival food, but he'll do shit like, he'll stack up a bunch of survival food and then put like a tarp over it to make it a couch. And he'll use like packages of survival food to make like the legs of tables and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right, so that it's like incorporated in your house, but then you live in like this piece of shit, like ready prepared bunker, right? Like, you don't really live in a house anymore. That's great if you have like an underground installment.
Yeah.
So we got to this from the May Queen. Yeah, we did. We somehow went to there from the May Queen.
Yeah.
The bustling, the hedgerow bustling.
This is a very different discussion because every discussion so far has very rarely deviated from the topic, and we have gone in almost every direction that podcasts normally talk about. We've talked about legalization. We've talked about the power grid. We've talked about people.
We've talked about like our effect on the environment.
Our governments.
I think that the reason this is so different is that all of the other ones was me telling you this is what's between the pages. Whereas this is the first time where I don't fucking know. Mm-hmm. You don't know. A bunch of the people listening probably don't know. I mean, even the people who wrote this, they probably see one specific meaning, but they may not even realize other meanings that are there, and they just didn't intend.
I may bring this up every single podcast. That it's not up to the artist to tell the viewer what the art means. It's up to the viewer to tell the artist what it means.
It's true because unless in cases where the artist is also the viewer, right? For obvious reasons. Like when we go back to watch our own content, we become the viewer.
That's a great point because there's times where we record a session and I felt like shit about it, total, like to the point where there's times like I didn't even put Hitman Blood Money episode 4 on the editing computer for like 4 months. I forgot about it. Didn't even transfer it. That's how shitty I thought it was.
You didn't like it.
I didn't even want to put it up. I didn't even think about it. And then one day I'm like, we recorded that, didn't we? And I went and checked it out. And it's fucking great. It's from like
it is good.
It's funny really too because I'm pretty sure it's a one mic. It's a one mic episode, and it was uploaded in the middle of like 32 mic episodes. So it's just like out of nowhere, it's totally different in its microphone quality because it was that far behind.
I'm sure nobody noticed.
Because
you did.
There's definitely people because I watch things and I'm like, oh, were you recording this in a different room today? Because I can hear that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, someone didn't put a padding in front of that computer or something. Like, yeah.
So the next like the choice of path in 7B where it says yes, there are 2 paths you can go by. But in the long run, there is still time to change the road you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he's saying there's 2 paths, which I guess we've sort of laid out. There's the Lady Liberty path and the nature path. But what he's saying is that you by default get on a road. This is the thing where if you don't make a choice, that is making a choice. Right? Because he's saying there's still time to change the road you're on. Like, if there's 2 paths you can go by, theoretically, you should still have to choose. But no, you're already on one path.
Right.
And it's only by deciding to go to the other path that you can change the direction you're going. So no choice is a choice in and of itself.
And inaction itself is an action.
Exactly. So it's you are bound by this decision. We are all bound by this decision, whether we like it or not.
Interesting.
And then he goes on to say, your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper is calling you to join him. So your head is humming. I think that's because as the whispers get louder and the tune starts to grow in your head, you start to have this incredible feeling that something is wrong. Something about the way we're doing this just isn't right. This is another callback to 1984. He talks about how you have no comparison to know that life could be better,
right?
But your bones feel it. Your bones feel wrong. You almost feel like you want to jump out of your skin and be somewhere else. And I think that's the humming is almost like when you see in movies and it starts shaking the screen. It's like, we are not the money in your wallet. We are not what car you have. We are the all dancing, all singing shit of the world.
You are not the games that you play.
That's a good movie.
It's George Weidman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
He says It's really funny. It's like an experimental point in his show where he ends like an episode. He does this like a year in review as far as video game stuff, and he talks about how a lot of game companies try to sell you an idea by trying to like I forget how he says it. It's like don't let a company sell you back your personality or something like that. And he's like, you are not the games you play. You are a person that has so many experiences around the games that you play. I don't know why I brought this up, but I think George Weidman needs to be in pretty much everything.
Okay.
I bought George socks, okay? It's important
That's true.
that I talk about.
That's true. So...
George Weidman. Whoa!
No,
eh?
No.
Eh?
No.
I don't think
Last
George
name.
smokes.
No.
He doesn't seem like he even drinks coffee.
So this is where I started to get confused on the piper. Because I thought the piper had to be a man. Not a man, but a person, a human. But then it says, dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know that your stairway lies on the whispering wind? So my question is the piper in the wind? Like, is the tune that we're supposed to be getting, is it a tune from nature itself? Is the piper supposed to be more of a figurative thing? Like the winds of change carry the message of the piper, which brings the tune to all the people.
That's really interesting.
Because that would be why the stairway lies in the whispering wind, because nature is buying your stairway with all of the gold she creates. Right? She is creating you a stairway. The stairway to heaven, I think, is your life. I think the wind on down the road is just an expression, because your life is still a road.
I actually have this part on the wall.
I know. I wish it was available.
I have a Zeppelin poster.
It's just been covered up. But I think that is like the best allegory here, is that, nature is trying to bring the stairway to us because only she can buy it. And this is the stairway. All this shit we get to do in life is what brings us to heaven. Because without life, I mean, they say all babies go to heaven, but...
Did they?
Or is it all dogs go to heaven? I don't know. But ultimately, without the things you do in your life, you can't get to heaven or hell, right? If I think certain people end up in purgatory. I don't know why it is, but I feel like if you had no life experience, you'd probably end up there because they haven't decided if you're good or bad.
I thought purgatory was supposed to be about you, like your ability to resolve things from your life in order to move on.
Yeah, and I think you go to purgatory and then you have to figure shit out and then you get to move on.
That's why it's infinite. Like there's no like time limit on in purgatory.
Yeah, who was it that said that? He's like, okay, wait.
It was
so you go to purgatory.
Moshe Kasher, I think, or
Boj Mosier.
No, Moshe. I think Moshe Kasher.
I thought it was Boj Mosier.
Boj Mosier. It's definitely not Boj Mosier.
Wasn't Boj?
No. No, it's Moshe. Yeah, Moshe Kasher. Yeah.
Moshe Kasher. Okay. Yeah, and so he says, wait, you go to something infinite, and then after that is something else infinite?
He's like, you can't divide. Can't divide by infinite.
And that gets you 0 every time. So the personification goes on in 9a, and he says, as we wind on down the road, our shadows taller than our souls, not longer, like you'd imagine a shadow to be long across the ground.
What does shadow mean? Shadow in this context would mean that it's like your impact?
Well, let's jump ahead a little. It says, there walks a lady we all know who shines white light and wants to show. So what produces white light?
The sun?
The sun, right? So I'm thinking that Mother Nature, the wind, all this shit's the same thing. So the sun is like Mother Nature's impression upon us. And our shadow is all of the area in which we do not allow Mother Nature to affect, right? Because the shadow we create is us preventing sunlight.
The
lady's white light.
Stop the light.
Yeah. But the question is, why are our shadows tall and not long? Because the line easily could have been our shadows longer than our souls. And everyone would have known what they meant.
Which is weird, because the sun, the closer a light object becomes to what blocks the light, the bigger the shadow
becomes.
But the sun is the furthest light source that really
exists for us.
Affects us relatively.
Yeah.
So really, our shadows should be actually smaller than us, right?
Yes.
So this is a proverbial thing, not a literal thing.
Yeah, well, it's almost saying that our shadows is not necessarily your shadow, my shadow, our parents' shadows. I think it might be our collective human shadow is taller than the souls in which we actually live.
I like how you put an apostrophe over everything.
I did? Oh, no, that's how the song... That's how the song is. Yeah, this is all taken from Google Play lyrics, Google Music lyrics. So then, yeah, the lady who shines white light and wants to show how everything still turns to gold. So I don't really know what any of that means, because we already talked about the lady we all know who shines white light. I think is because it's Mother Nature, and wants to show how everything still turns to gold. So this is what I was saying before. Everything eventually becomes something useful, but not through random chance. Remember that I showed you this video? It was History in 18 Minutes?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and in it he says that everything goes from a state of order to a state of disorder. Things like to fall apart.
It's the second law of thermodynamics.
Yes, it is. That's entropy.
Thank you, Dexter.
Thank you, Dexter. So, with everything going from order to disorder, the fact that we have arrived here makes no sense. Right? We are the gold. We are something that...
Right.
So I guess
life on Earth being heaven.
Well, think about it this way. Gold is incredibly rare, and you find it in these tiny amounts speckled throughout this huge Earth.
Right.
And gold makes up a tiny little fraction of the total mass of the Earth.
And even in the world of elements, too, it's pretty uncommon, isn't it?
Exactly. Which is the same as people. People we haven't seen on any other planets that we've seen so far.
But there's also not
we
very
haven't
many...
seen that many planets. It's true.
Also, like, there's probably...
But think about it this way. We're not saying, like... of all habitable planets, people are only on this one. We're saying of all planets, period. Most of them don't have people. Most of them, like, if you go to buy mass of planets, people versus, like, the mass of the overall universe, people are probably in less abundance than gold, right?
Right.
We're this minute resource that barely exists in one spot, and you have to go right there if you want to get us. And I think that that's what it's saying. It's saying that Mother Nature shines white light on everything, and eventually brings everything and turns it into gold. Because without Mother Nature, look at all these other planets that don't have quote-unquote nature. They never build anything. They never develop anything unique. Not that anything we build is great. If you look at it from satellite images, we look like scars on the world.
Yeah, organisms like feeding.
Yeah, we look like sores.
Also an interesting thing, because water, especially in like high volumes, is highly reflective. You can see like
shimmers.
Like when you get close up to most ocean water, it's green, but from far away it looks blue and glistening. It looks beautiful. You go underneath the ocean, and it's fucking terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
At nighttime, it's even scarier.
Yeah.
And so when you go to, like, I think what he's like, because that's the start of life, right? Water.
Water. Yeah.
That's where it all starts. All the other ones are important, but not nearly as important as the beginning, because that's how all life forms started, was through water.
But you're right. The water glitters, which means that is the gold.
It's gold.
The water, and because water is the gold.
And gold is not just an element; it is also a way of describing things. The way that we call
the Goldilocks zone.
Whoa!
Because that's what they say. For the Goldilocks zone, you need liquid water. You can't be too close or too far from the sun.
I never noticed gold in her name. Interesting. Because I always just, because locks is hair, I always thought that was just her name.
Her name, yeah, because she's blonde.
Blondie hair. But that's very interesting, because I think when he's, like, because the way that we would call, like, a person garbage, It's a description, not just a literal.
You're
meaning.
garbage.
You're a garbage person. Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Not like nothing against people. Garbage men and women. You're wonderful. Garbage people, however. Gold in this sense does not mean the literal gold. It is referring to like when you say like, yeah, man, we're golden.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, because gold is this ultimate versatility thing, right?
It's also extremely useful as an element, yes.
I actually found out something. This is
There's gold in their microphones.
A little bit gold.
A little bit of gold.
Well, this is I found out an interesting tidbit. I used to think they used gold because it had the highest conductivity, but it doesn't. Silver is more conductive, and so is copper.
Really?
But the reason they use gold is gold doesn't tarnish. So none of those connectors ever get weakened. Whereas if you use silver, it tarnishes fairly easily, and copper even easier than that.
How does the carat system work? Because
that's a purity amount. So I'm pretty sure gold is usually cut with another metal.
Yeah, because I had a teacher who said that you want to go to a certain point, but after that, it's a problem. He's like, I forget what he said, but he was like, if this ring was at this certain amount of carats, it'd be all over the room. It wouldn't stay on my finger.
Yeah, like a 50 carat gold ring would actually drip. It would run. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they cut it with iron, I think. Iron or steel, which is an iron-based metal.
Is that supposed to make it magnetic, or is it just...
or
is all
iron
iron
magnetic even? Yeah, iron is magnetic.
All of
100%, yeah. Because iron is a ferromagnesium...
ferromagnesium.
Which means that all of its electrons align in the same direction. So it
also means that he liked to party in Egyptian times.
It means they create a field, man. It's like a magnet, man. So we've
gold rings of smoke through the trees.
So we've actually talked about 9C, where he hints to the hidden meaning.
Right.
So I mean,
his own song is very.
Yeah, and I think it's there. I think it's there.
Well, songs are not always intended, but almost in almost every situation end up being up to interpretation.
Yes. Well, for the most part, songs are very explicit. Like a lot of songs don't really have this kind of wording, where the wording in this is all meant to be very general. It's sort of meant to lead you down the wrong way. It's
right.
It's like I was talking about in one of our other episodes, the misdirection that comedians use, where they lead you one way and then throw you back the other direction.
I think that's probably an interesting correlation between songs I like and don't like. Like when I hear them, I hear on the radio, and it's just like, I love you and you love me. And
so let's Walla Walla down by the mango tree.
Because in that situation, there's no extra element. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's two people who love each other wallowing by a mango tree.
That's actually from Meatballs, though.
I know.
Okay, I've got it. Okay.
You know what, brother? It just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter.
I keep trying to tell people about that movie, and people who know it are like, just shake their heads, and I'm like, dude, that is one of the best movies ever.
It is. It
and
totally
people are like,
is.
No, it's not that good. And I'm like, Rudy the rabbit. You Rudy?
Okay, that scene where he's walking around and he's doing this monologue where he's like, and it just doesn't matter because even if we win, even if God himself comes down to the field, when he's doing that whole thing, that's what's going on. You hear people laughing.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, okay, they're supposed to like show that the audience is laughing. And then I realized, no, the audience is supposed to be quiet, but they can't because he's so funny that they're just dying.
I don't think most of that was supposed to be in
Probably
there.
not.
It wouldn't surprise, like that whole intro where he's like, he pretends to be from Camp Mohawk.
Oh,
he's like, what can we expect at Camp Mohawk? And he's like, well, Jim, this year we really wanted to change things. And so each kid will have to stalk and eat their own bear.
And then during Sexual Awareness Week, armed with only $2,000 cash, they will have to visit as many countries as they can. And the winner will be allowed to rape and pillage the surrounding villages for the remaining 2 weeks of camp.
Yeah,
like it's such a legendary scene.
Well, that's very interesting.
That's amazing. And he says, "Well, what do you expect for $1,000 a week?"
I watched that movie so many times as a kid and never understood it.
No,
pretty much none of it I understood.
So I've been watching movies again recently where like I used to try and watch a movie all at once, but I just don't have time for it anymore. So sometimes I'll watch it in these chunks.
Me too.
And one thing I saw in Fight Club that blew my mind, in the very beginning scene, the narrator has a gun in his mouth, and he says, and then the guy with the gun says, "Any last words?" And the narrator mouths something, so he takes the gun out, and the narrator goes, "I can't think of anything to say." then skip forward all the way to the end of the movie. Not giving away any spoilers.
Yeah.
It comes right back to that first moment where the guy's got the gun in his mouth and he says, "Any last words?" And the narrator mouths something, so he pulls the gun out, and the narrator goes, "I still don't have anything to say." And the guy with the gun goes, cutback humor. And then he walks around him. Yeah, watch it again, dude. Watch the movie again. It was one of those little things where I didn't even realize the joke happened until they'd already moved on to other lines.
Yeah.
But it's subtle. It's for people who've watched the movie 3-4 times.
I've seen a couple of those in like I love it when people don't. I think that's what we did in the early days, is that we would make a reference and then we'd make sure people know. And I still do that a lot, especially when like what I said is kind of
obscure,
kind of fucked up. If you don't know what I mean, like it's something I'm trying to avoid. But nowadays we're getting better and better at just making references and just leaving them there. But I love when a show does that, where they say something and you just like whatever, and then later on, maybe years down the road, you go, oh,
this part here's gonna blow your fucking mind.
That's confidence. Is what that is.
It is. It's extreme confidence.
Confidence in your content. Confidence in the viewers' natural desire to connect dots and learn new information.
Which some people have, some people don't.
Well, we were just making, I won't say who it was, we were just making fun of a YouTuber just today that just essentially is like pushing people to appreciate their content.
It was kind of thrown together.
It's a very common thing on YouTube, an unfortunately common thing that's for some reason okay, to ask people for likes.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's also funny how there's people who will ask for likes and then disable the like bar.
Probably because they got a mountain of downvotes for that.
How are you allowed to disable the dislike bar? Comments
video,
make sense.
I guess.
Comments are fine. When Joe Rogan does his live podcast to YouTube, there's no comments, and I think that's hilarious. I think that so perfectly matches Joe's
his
view,
way,
where he's like, sure, I appreciate what you have to say. At the same time, I don't care. I don't really need it there.
Plus, people will tweet it if they really care, right?
That's something PewDiePie did a long time ago. He found that comments were just rife with people trying to get attention and act really stupid. So what he did was disabled comments entirely. Created a website where you had to sign in. And it was the tiniest amount of extra effort. And he found that it limited the negativity significantly.
Yeah, because people like to be shitty when all they have to do is click and write it.
Well, it's like the difference between keeping money in a locked box that everyone knows about and keeping money open where everyone knows about. The two, you can, like, so if you really wanted to get into the locked box and you had a mind to do it, you probably could. But if you walk into a room that's unattended with money just sitting there,
you're way more likely to take it.
You may not have even thought you were going to do that, but as you walk in and you just see $100 bill, you're like, that's that easy? I could just take $100?
It's the same as
the difference.
I used to lock up my bike with this super shitty lock.
Yeah.
Like, if you really wanted to, you could take a piece of metal, twist it, kick it, and it would break. But it keeps someone from being drunk and just grabbing the bike and leaving, right? So it's just a layer to keep out 90% of it. It's the same as when you put like a drape over your door when you're doing construction work.
Yeah.
You don't expect that you're going to keep every single bit of dirt out.
Yeah.
But if it keeps 90% of the dirt out of your house, problem solved.
Well, that's what Dad said with the bike thing. He said you don't have to put a complicated lock on there. If you don't put a lock on there and no one knows it's your bike, anyone can walk away with that. They don't even have to take off. No one knows it's not theirs.
Yeah, they could just pick it up and walk away.
But you put a tiny lock on there and somebody sees a guy cutting the lock off. Obviously, that's not his bike.
Yeah, it's more bait.
Yeah.
Well, and also, if I have a shitty bike, no one with the right tools will steal it because it's not worth it to them, right? Like, someone who has the tools, they're there to steal a $2,000 bike. Right. They're there to steal a $500 bike. They're not there to steal the bike I bought when I was 14.
You remember that stand-up comedian? He's like, I don't put a lock on my bike, but I weld the seat so that you have to be my height, and I loosen the handlebars.
Yes, in case they don't know. I loosen the front wheel. Oh my God. It'd be so funny. People would definitely not see that coming.
No, of course not. The welding part to me is the funniest.
Yeah, just weld the seat together.
It's like a big old fuck you. I lost a bike.
Yeah,
someone stole my bike in a very short period of time too. Like it was out front for, like, it wasn't like a whole night. I think it was like only like a couple hours.
Really?
Yeah. Totally. I don't think they ever found it. Oh, maybe they did.
Yeah, I know we did find it.
We did find
Yeah,
it.
we did find it on a road nearby. It was on someone's front lawn, actually. I don't know if it was ditched or not, but we did find it.
Probably someone who was just like,
Yeah.
Cool. I need to go somewhere.
That's why the little lock is good.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people, I knew a guy like that. I knew a guy like that in my first year of university who would actually take someone's bike, ride it somewhere, and then leave it there. Like on campus. He would just ride the bike from the gym to the reses and then just leave it. And someone even asked him, they're like, why do you do that? He's like, oh, because it's like, I can use it. It's there. Like, you're an asshole.
Fuck.
But, yeah, let's not go into that. So my favorite part about this song is probably the fact that it is an 8-minute song. And the crescendo of the song happens between 7 minutes and 15 seconds and 7.5 minutes out of 8. That is so late in the song.
Yeah.
Almost every intense part of the song, like I think right around 7 minutes is where it starts to go into that solo.
Mm-hmm.
So an 8-minute song and only the final minute has any real drama in it. But that final minute has all the drama that you need. Whenever you think of Stairway to Heaven, you don't think of, well, I mean, you might think of the beginning, but you don't think of like the "ooh, it makes me wonder" part. Right. You think of the "and as we wind on down the road," because it's just so different. So different. And then the last lines, "when all are one and one is all," that I think is actually pretty obvious. That's like the one line in this whole thing that's actually, or no, wait.
Is he speaking of like a cohesive group of people with a similar mindset? Is that what he's talking about?
Well, he's saying both. He's saying when one are all and, when all are one and one is all. So he's saying whenever a day comes that we've somehow got to a position where we're all in one boat, which just seems kind of impossible, but...
uniting against a common enemy would do it, but unfortunately it would probably have to be an enemy great enough to completely put a bustle in our hedgerow.
So I think I've actually divided it up weirdly here because, 9C, if you listen very hard, the tune will come to you at last. I think when all are one and one is all is actually part of that. So I think it's, if you listen very hard, the tune will come to you at last when all are one and one is all.
Right.
I think those are all connected, even though it feels like the last two lines are connected.
Okay.
And then I think to be a rock and not to roll is its own thing. I think the point of that line is a rock only exists in two different states. So there's a rock stationary that is accumulating, like moss, dirt, more, like some rocks get buried, right? Some rocks end up 40, 50, 100 feet underground. So
I think that's the same idea as the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, exactly. Rolling Stone gathers no moss.
Yeah.
Right? So, but the one thing that they didn't account for is that a stationary stone doesn't have to accumulate moss. If a stationary stone is in a river,
right, it's
exactly the opposite. It's getting worn down constantly.
Oh.
So a rock is either being eroded or being built up upon, except while it's rolling. That is the only moment where a rock is actually...
being a rock.
It's being a rock only. It's not being a pedestal for something else, and it's not being a punching bag for a river.
But then he says to be a rock and not to roll. So is he trying to say to be something implausible? What he's saying is that the idea of being one and all is one or whatever like that is an implausible idea?
To be honest, I didn't even read that before.
And what is it you call logical ambiguity?
Logical ambiguity?
He's saying to be something that can't be that thing.
So, to be a rock and not to roll. So I think what he's saying... Weird. So I think what he's saying there is that the unfortunate nature that we've sold ourselves into is being rocks that never roll.
Right.
Right? He's saying, we don't run like we once did. We don't forage like we once did. We don't do any of the things that make us roll. We do a lot more sitting. We do a lot more...
To be a rock and not to roll is part of the there shines a lady, right? She says and wants to show how everything still turns to gold. And if you listen very hard, the tune to be a rock and not to roll, it's part of the same it's like what he's saying is the lady wants to show how to be a rock and not to roll.
Ah.
That's all together. That's important that it's because to be a not rock and not to roll is not its own statement. It's
So-
it's a
Yeah, it's part of the whole.
it's like
So
if you
maybe,
said like, on our trip we went to the castle, went to the lake. Like each one of them is independent to each other, but they're all connected to the on our vacation we went.
So the lady wants to show that everything's turned into gold. If you listen very hard, the tune will come to you. And then when all are one and one is all, how to be a rock but not roll. Maybe what she's saying is that when you're a rock stationary, you are either part of a river, part of the land, part of the soil, you're part of something. But when you're a rock rolling, you're nothing. For that moment from you falling off the top of a mountain to the moment you come to rest at the base,
None of it's your choice. You're being affected by something greater than you, gravity.
and only Mother Nature can show you how to be a rock that doesn't roll, right? By bringing you down the mountain.
Interesting. I think rock in this sense means like a solid thing, like you're my rock, like to hold
Okay.
steady. That could be what it means.
And so to not roll means to be stable.
Yes.
Okay.
I find it interesting. The poster I have, which is a very popular one, it's got like a man with a hood. He's holding a lantern. It says Led Zeppelin at the top, and it has most of that final. Actually, it has
A through D?
A through D. Everything except for "And She's Buying a Stairway to Heaven." I found that interesting because it says "Stairway to Heaven" at the top or at the middle, but it doesn't include that last part, and I didn't notice that until right now. But it's because it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be tacked on at the end. It's supposed to be a final conclusion.
And he says it very separately. Like it's a totally different stanza.
Oh yeah, because it's like bow bow chicka chicka bow bow chicka chicka bow da bow da bow da bow da bow bow bow, and all the way down to be a rock and not to roll, and then it quiets. Isn't that where there's
Yeah, it goes way back down, like almost to the start of the song type.
yeah, and then it's back to like
And she's
Yeah.
by, and he drags it out. Like, yeah, that's definitely meant to be a sign off.
yeah.
And so I think we're on the right path, but I think we've discovered what I discovered when I did this alone.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of elements of both. Both ideas have like really strong holds. The idea that the lady is Mother Nature, and also that the lady is Lady Law. I think it's sort of a matter of how you want to look at it, but also what messages you want to draw from it. Because if you look at it one way, you can learn certain things, and if you look at it the other way, you can learn different things.
Yeah.
But
It's-
ultimately, this song is awesome.
It's very
This is a
yeah.
killer,
It's amazing.
killer song.
It's probably like if you can learn the entire song on guitar, it's almost everything you need to learn. It's got at the beginning, it's got plucked chords. It has several power chord sections. It's got palm mutes. I think bow bow chicka chicka. Yeah, that's a palm mute. It's got wicked solo that actually fits. That's my issue with a lot of AC/DC songs, is that the solo feels completely separate.
Feels slapped in.
It feels like he's going off in a different direction while the rest of the band is over here. Whereas this solo feels so perfect
Beyond perfect.
because the bass is still doing something that complements, the drums still complement. I'm pretty sure it's also the part where Robert Plant takes out a tambourine. It was really funny. I was watching the live version, and there's a part where he walks to the back and the dude hands him a tambourine, and I'm just like, that's funny. But I probably would have come up with some sort of way to like attach it to me, so that it was like
Strapped to your back?
like a hip holster, or like like a sword from your back, and just pull out the tambourine.
Or just have it descend from the ceiling like the microphones in boxing.
Oh, that would be so good. Except you risk the embarrassment of being hit in the head by a tambourine.
Yeah.
For
a hard hat.
I think the tambourine probably gets as bad a name as the triangle. Both things that
Pretty
appear
bad, yeah.
they appear to be useless instruments, but really, like if you use them right. I mean, it's like a block. You know what a block is? It's like
TikTok?
it's like a. You can make it. I mean, it was probably originally made out of wood, but it's a thing you put next to your, like, it's part of a drum kit, and it just makes like a click, like a pop sound. I can't do the noise, but it's unlike any other sound you're gonna get.
So it's not like a TikTok,
no.
which is like the little piece of wood that has two open sides to it, and you just tap each one.
It might be like that. Can you do that like that? It sounds like
That's
that.
a TikTok. Yeah.
Okay. That, yeah, I call it a block, but it's one of those things like a triangle that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he plays the tambourine, does he?
Yeah, at least the TikTok's part of a drum kit, which gives it a little more.
Wait, there's a lot of songs that benefit from
significantly from it. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of times where you don't realize instruments that are contributing, right? Like you don't realize how much is behind a lot of the songs until you hear like I highly recommend Protest the Heroes Blood Meat instrumental only, and you realize how many things are going on behind Rhodey's voice.
Such a gross title.
Blood Meat, yeah, it's supposed to be.
Gross title.
A lot of their songs are gross. Wretch. That just that inspires that does not inspire positivity.
I suppose, but it's not as gory as Blood Meat.
Yeah, I mean the whole song. That's what the song's about. The song's about I think it's based in like the Huns' time.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of the songs are like
ruthless times.
The tour they did where they played a lot of Fortress was called "When the Gallop Meets the Earth," and that's actually a line from the album.
Okay.
I love how I managed to swing Protest into a Led Zeppelin.
We swung a lot of stuff in here. We talked about meatballs. Meatballs!
Meatballs.
We all go meeting balls. Something like that.
Let's go meeting balls.
Yeah, I think these discussions are different than book discussions because there's no cohesive story, even though there was in Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I think these are, a little more freeform. But I really liked it. I think this is a great song. This is a timeless song that, I mean, they still play today on the radio.
Yeah.
Right? I heard it one day. I was playing it in my room, and then I walked out of my room, and I heard it playing on the radio.
That's awesome. There was like a famous story where some radio station got like accidentally locked out of their booth, and they played Zeppelin over and over again. They played Stairway over and over again. Yeah.
That's not the end of the world. I've listened to it probably 2 or 3 times back to back in this whole process.
Oh, there's albums that I've discovered that I just, as soon as it was over, just started it again.
Yeah, but I'm talking like the song ends and the song restarts.
Right.
Like a couple times in a row.
I don't think I can do that.
Well, it's 8 minutes though. You got to understand that you listen to it 3 times.
Yeah.
And that's almost that's like 25 minutes you spent listening to Zeppelin. So like each one does feel fresh.
Interesting.
Fresh. Exciting.
I think I've already listened to it too much when I was young.
Oh, that's true.
I even did a project on it.
No Stairway.
Yeah.
Denied.
Oh.
So thank you for joining us in the Led Zeppelin discussion, the Led Zeppelin ad discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we'll be back with more. No, we'll be back with more.
Yeah.
Don't you folks worry.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Hopefully.
Ha.
Fuck.
All right. See you, fuckers. Come on, you got to say something to the nice people.
I was about to.
Well, then do it.
You ruined my timing. Try it again. No, I'm just joking. Peace.
Yeah, I like that.